Hello, students. So, today we are again here with the last topics from the last chapter of our syllabus, Paths to Modernization. As you must remember, in the previous topics, we have done about the modernization and westernization of Japan, as well as how the different opinions of Chinese scholars made China a republic country and also paved the way for it to be a modern nation state. So, the topic is the establishment of the new democracy in China. The People's Republic in China was established in 1949. Critical areas of the economy were put under government's control, and private enterprise and private ownership of land were gradually ended. This program lasted till 1953, when the government declared that it would launch a program of socialist transformation. The Great Leap Forward movement was launched in 1958, which was actually a policy to galvanize the country to industrialize rapidly. People were encouraged to set up steel furnaces in their backyard. So, basically, by all these steps, the Chinese people could succeed in establishing a new democracy. After that, in the rural areas also, people's communes were started. By 1958, there were 26,000 communes covering 98% of the farm population. So now what was the commune? Commune basically meant for the common lands where more than one family could work together for making more production. Mao Zedong was able to mobilize the masses to attain the goal set by his party. His concern was to create a socialist man who must have five loves: fatherland, people, labor, science, and public property. These must be the five spheres and five fields which must be loved by a social man. Mass organization were also created for farmers, women, students, and other groups. In the year 1953-54, some were urging for more attention to industrial organization and economic growth in China. Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping tried to modify the commune system as it was not working efficiently. The steel produced in the backyard furnaces was also not so much of use. Now we are coming to the next topic, reforms from 1978 that was done under the CCP in China. Deng Xiaoping kept partly control strong while introducing a socialist market economy. In the year 1978, the party declared its goal as the four modernization, and those four modernizations were to develop science, industry, agriculture, and defense. But on 5th December 1978, a wall poster declared for a fifth modernization that must be democracy, as it was believed that without democracy, the other modernization are of no use. So it went on to criticize the CCP not solving problem of poverty and ending sexual exploitation in country, even citing cases abusing from within the Chinese Communist Party itself. So these were some of the problems that were undertaken during the rule of CCP. The demands were suppressed, but in 1989, on the 17th anniversary of the May 4th movement, many intellectual people called for a greater openness and an end to ossified dogmas. Students demonstrated at Tiananmen Square in Beijing, but they were brutally repressed. The dominant view, supported by the party, is based on strong political control, economic liberalization, and integration into the world market. Finally, there is a growing revival of earlier so called traditional ideas of Confucianism, and society followed its own tradition rather than simply copying the West. That's why we are calling that the Chinese people did not westernize themselves totally, but they also hold with them their traditional ideas. Now, the next topic is the story of Taiwan. Taiwan, that has been a Japanese colony since the Chinese ceded it after the 1894-95 war with Japan. The Cairo Declaration of 1943 and the Potsdam Proclamation of 1949 restored sovereignty to China. The Kuomintang Party under Chiang Kai shek went on to establish a repressive government forbidding free speech and even political opposition and excluding the local population from position of power. Basically, it meant for the people of Taiwan were not allowed to hold any political post or authority. However, they carried out land reforms that increased the agricultural productivity and modernized the economy so that by 1973, Taiwan had a GNP second only to that of Japan in Asia. Even more dramatic situation came with the transformation of Taiwan into a democracy. It began slowly after the death of Chiang Kai shek in 1975 and grew when martial law was lifted in 1987 and opposition parties were legally permitted. The first free election began the process of bringing local Taiwanese to power. The question of reunification with the mainland remains a contentious issue, but cross-strait relations have been improving and Taiwanese trade and investment in the mainland are massive and travel has also become easier nowadays. That means in today's times China is not at all the sovereign power over Taiwan. Taiwan is itself acting as a democratic nation. As you can see, this is the flag of Taiwan. The last topic of the chapter is coming two roads to modernization. Here we are going to compare the methods of modernization adopted by both China and Japan. Industrial societies, far from becoming like each other, have found their own paths to becoming modern. Japan was successful in retaining its independence and using traditional skills and practice in new ways, like by copying the Western ways. Japan's program of modernization was carried out in an environment dominated by Western imperial powers. Japanese nationalism was marked by the different compulsion. While many Japanese hoped to liberate Asia from Western domination for others, these ideas justified building of an empire under the Meijis in Japan. It is important to note that the transformation of social and political institutions and daily life was not just a question of reviving traditions of tenaciously preserving them, but rather of creativity using them in new and different ways. So, again and again, it is coming that Japan became totally a Western idealized country. The Meiji school system, modeled on the European and American practices, introduced new subjects, but the curriculum's main objective was to make a loyal citizen for the country. The Chinese path to modernization was somehow very different from the Japanese path. Foreign imperialism, both Western and Japanese, combined with a hesitant and unsure king dynasty to weaken government control and set the stage for a breakdown of political and social order, led to the immense misery for most of the people. The 19th and 20th centuries saw a rejection of tradition and a search for new ways to build national unity and strength. The CCP and its supporters fought to put an end to tradition, which they say as keeping the masses in poverty, the women subjugated and saw the country underdeveloped. The success of the communist program promised hope, but its repressive political system turned the ideal of liberation and equality into slogan to manipulate the people. The party has now carried out market reforms and has been successful in making China economically powerful, but its political system continued to be tightly controlled. So, by all such things and facts, we can say that uh, whereas Japan became a totally westernized and modernized country, China did not leave the traditional views, the traditional ideologies of it, but yes, it also used those traditions in a new way. So that's it for the chapter. Thank you. Bye bye.